Jonathan Kuminga is special. After having a couple of lackluster performances in both his first and second season, so far into his third year, Jonathan Kuminga has been a completely different player, and now he's really showing why he was drafted so highly. And I think at this point, Kuminga is such a big part of what the Warriors do that he would be a huge part in any success that Golden State has throughout the rest of this season and possibly in the playoffs as well. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm JuicySports. I make opinionated NBA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. I also want to quickly mention that I recently started up an MMA channel, and if you guys are interested in that, the link will be in the description. But anyways, let's get into it. Jonathan Kuminga was originally drafted with the number 7 overall selection during the 2021 NBA draft by the Golden State Warriors. And originally when Kuminga was coming into the NBA, there were pretty high expectations for this guy. This guy was seen as a player that could be a true two-way guy. Of course, he had a great size for the NBA game. He was also capable of potentially being very successful offensively and defensively. But obviously at this point, as we all know, in his first season and also in his second season, Kuminga didn't necessarily live up to expectations, as in year 1 he ended up averaging 9.3 points per game on 3.3 boards and 0.9 assists. And obviously there were certain stretches where Kuminga looked pretty good, but of course at the end of the day his rookie season definitely didn't live up to par of what people thought he could potentially be. And in his second season things didn't necessarily get that much better, as in year 2 Kuminga ended up averaging 9.9 points per game on 3.4 boards and 1.9 assists. Now obviously those numbers aren't horrible, they're pretty solid numbers, but when you consider where Kuminga was drafted and when you consider the expectations that people had for this guy, of course he was underperforming after 2 seasons passed. But so far into year 3, Kuminga looks like a completely different player, as so far this season Kuminga is averaging 16.2 points per game on 4.7 boards and 2.1 assists. Now obviously when you look at the numbers, there is an improvement there and a pretty significant one, but in my personal opinion, I think when you watch Kuminga out there, he looks like a completely different player so far into year 3 than he did in year 1 or even in year 2. But a question that some of you may be wondering at this point is, why has Jonathan Kuminga been so successful so far this season? Well, in my opinion, it comes down to a couple different factors, but the main factor has to be his overall scoring ability. Because when you watch Kuminga out there, it's pretty clear that this guy has a capability of scoring the basketball in a lot of different ways. Of course, from that 3-point range, Kuminga isn't necessarily known as a great 3-point shooter, but at the end of the day, he definitely has that ability, and as the seasons do progress, I only expect improvement from Kuminga's 3-point game. But besides his 3-point shooting ability, Kuminga also has a pretty nice ability from that mid-range as well. As from that mid-range area, Kuminga does a really nice job at hitting a 1-dribble pull-up, a post turnaround fadeaway, catch and shoot, sidestep or step back, and basically from that mid-range area, Kuminga has it all. But definitely the best aspect of Jonathan's game is his driving and finishing ability. Once Kuminga gets a full head of steam driving all the way down to the basket, he's extremely dangerous and virtually impossible to stop. Kuminga does a really nice job at utilizing crafty layups, either his left or right hand, but probably the most important thing that Kuminga does once driving to the basket is dunking over players and utilizing his great size, wingspan, and phenomenal athleticism. So overall, even though Kuminga isn't necessarily the most refined offensive talent in the league, he definitely does make it work with what he has. And at this point, I do think he is a pretty dangerous scorer, and of course, as his seasons do progress and as his career does progress, I fully expect this guy to make significant improvements. But the next factor for why I think Kuminga has been able to be so special is due to his versatility. Because when you watch Kuminga out there, he's not only just an on-ball scorer, he also does a phenomenal job at moving without the ball, and when you have guys like Steph Curry and Draymond Green on your team, they're probably going to find you more likely than not for backdoor cuts for wide open dunks, and I definitely think we've seen a lot of that from Kuminga this season. But besides just his scoring ability, Kuminga does a great job at rebounding both offensively and defensively by utilizing the great athleticism that he has and the great size that he has as well. Now besides that, Kuminga also does a pretty nice job defensively, and overall I think when you look at the complete package of what Kuminga is, I think he's able to score in a lot of different ways, and he's able to help out your team in a lot of different ways. And I think due to that, Kuminga is just one of those guys that you want to have on your roster. But another question that some of you may be wondering at this point is, where do I think Kuminga's career is going to go from here? Well, in my opinion, I think it's going to go in a very positive direction, and I feel that way for a couple different reasons. And the first reason is the situation that he's in. Because when you look at the Golden State Warriors, it's pretty clear that these guys just know how to win. They know how to develop young talent, they know how to win basketball games, and overall I just think it's a perfect situation for a younger player like Kuminga is to learn under these guys. Obviously he has Steve Kerr as his head coach, and Steve has had a ton of success coaching Golden State for a good amount of time now, and it's just a great veteran presence to have. Of course, in terms of players, he has Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, even Draymond Green, I guess you can say, and some other guys on the roster as well that would really help Jonathan Kuminga out significantly. So I definitely do think the situation that Jonathan Kuminga is in is a huge reason for why I think he's going to become a much better player in the future than he is currently at this point. But of course, the other reason for why I think he's going to have a successful career in the NBA is due to his actual skills. Of course, as I mentioned before, Jonathan is a very versatile player, and he is a guy that's able to score at a pretty high level already at this point. So as the seasons do progress, I think he's going to make some significant refinements, like for example his three-point jump shot, like for example adding some more moves to his mid-range game, finishing around the basket at a little bit of a higher percentage. And I think at the end of the day, in 2 or 3, maybe even 4 seasons from now, I think we're going to see significant improvements from Kuminga's scoring game. And if Kuminga is able to score at an extremely high level, I think that's going to help open up a lot of different things for him as well offensively. Because if he's a great scorer out there, teams are going to start to send double and triple teams to him. And if that does happen, he'll be forced to improve his passing and playmaking ability, and I do think that's going to be another aspect that really benefits from an overall increase in skill level in terms of his individual scoring. So overall, when I look at Jonathan Kuminga, I already at this point think he's made significant improvements ever since he came to the league, and already at this point I think he's a very capable scorer and a very capable player for the Golden State Warriors. But in terms of his long-term future, I fully expect this guy to only make improvements. But another question that some of you may be wondering at this point is, what are my expectations for the Warriors this season? Well, obviously the Warriors have had a very up and down season. At the beginning of the year, they definitely weren't playing well whatsoever. They had a stretch where they were playing extremely well, and right now at this point, I would say the Warriors are playing well. They're not playing extremely well, they're not playing poorly, they're just playing well. So once it comes down to playoff time, I think the Warriors will make it to the playoffs. I think if they're in the play-in tournament at that time, they will win their games and make it to the playoffs. But once it comes down to actual playoff time, I don't necessarily think they'll have all that much success. Of course, Golden State could win a playoff game, maybe even 2, make a series relatively competitive due to their experience and due to the players they have on their team. But at the end of the day, I just don't think the Warriors are good enough to really compete with some of these top teams in the Western Conference. But I guess only time will tell what does end up happening. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Jonathan Kuminga is a special player, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these 2 videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.